So every time we are finding an answer to a mystery of the universe, suddenly the God is going further away from us. Do you see this?
Okay.
And therefore, it is important to see somewhere the idea of a God as a supernatural entity having created this universe can get questioned, and logically so. Namaste. My name is Bidhan. 2012 is when I chanced upon Upanishads, and it had a profound impact on my life. Since then, I have dreamt to bring the key aspects of Upanishads in a manner which is simple, relatable, and implementable in our daily lives. So here we are with a set of videos to make spirituality simple. Welcome, Preeti.
Hi, Budan.
So, in the last episode, we had an interesting conversation. Does God exist? And what we found out that if we kind of define God as someone which is supernatural, which is beyond our senses, which is beyond any measurement, then you can neither prove the existence of a God like that, nor can you disprove the existence of a supernatural God. So ultimately, we are back to faith.
Yeah. And I was looking for something beyond faith. Faith is a beautiful thing to have, but
Right.
I want some kind of logical explanation to it.
Yes, there are logical explanations, and we're going to talk about it. But I remember you have also said that assuming if there is a supernatural entity like this, but if you look at the affairs in the world today, it it doesn't make you feel that the God would have created something so miserable that people are going through, right? This you said something like
Yeah.
this.
And chaotic.
And chaotic.
Yeah. And I also remember asking you about people who have visions of God and people who have experiences of God, and how I feel all their accounts have different explanations, different experiences, where it's not cohesive.
So if God is one, they should have all had the same
Yeah.
experiences. It cannot have multiple experiences, which kind of questions the entire experience itself. Interesting. So let's go ahead with this. If you look at this universe, this is so intricately balanced, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to kind of think that this would have happened out of randomness. I mean, if you were to look at a watchmaker analogy by William Paley, it's not important who that person is for now. So the reasoning was this, that if you're say walking down the street and you're hit around a rock, then you don't ask who has made this rock, because you would say that rock has been there from beginning.
Yeah.
But suddenly if you hit or say watch, you pick up the watch and you look at how intricately this watch has been designed, right? There are needles, there are springs, there are so many things which is working in perfect alignment to make this entire piece works. And if you take out one piece away, the watch stops working.
Hmm.
So this cannot come out of random, and therefore it calls for a watchmaker.
Right.
Right. So similarly, if you look at this entire universe, or look at you, look at me, our systems are so much in balance. The way our systems functions, do you think it just come out of randomness, or there calls for a creator?
Okay. I mean, I agree with the beauty with which the universe works, or even our human bodies work. But again, this leads me back to the same argument which I had with you in the last conversation, where I remember saying that if you don't understand a phenomenon, then we sort of tag God to that. Like I gave you the example of thunder,
Yes.
saying that years ago, when people didn't understand how thunder works,
Mm.
they would say that God is angry,
Yeah. Thunder and lightning, God is angry.
right?
Right.
But now we understand. We
Yes.
know it's a phenomenon of nature. We understand how thunder works. So we don't attribute it to God anymore.
Right.
So is it that we don't understand the creation or
Mhm.
how it happened? And we're just attributing it to God. And eventually, when we do understand, then will it dissipate? That's the question.
Nice logic. You're saying just because we don't understand, we put a God over there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, earlier it was thunder. Today it is maybe this
Creation
cosmos,
of
the creation.
universe. Yeah.
I do understand from where you're coming. If I were to just take your argument a bit further, if you look at Darwin came out with the theory of evolution. So it has taken the concept away that the God was the one who created a human beings, right? You can clearly say how evolution has created Homo sapiens today. But what if I were to say that the very principles that underlying the evolution or the very mathematical constants that you see in the universe, that's maybe a design of God?
Okay, I see where you're coming from. But again, it is based on speculation, right? It's not like concrete.
Right.
So if you are so sure of what you're saying, then prove it.
Prove it.
I mean, that's all I'm asking.
All right, all right. No, I see you can't prove these things. Again, we are coming back to the same point that I don't have an answer, and therefore I just put God in terms of it. So this is something which is very interesting for all of us to understand here. That if we are able to explain a phenomenon, suddenly God goes little further away,
Hmm.
right? So gap of gods slowly starts moving away, and that is very important for us to start questioning that are we actually going in the right direction?
Um, I didn't get what you mean. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so earlier we would have said that God is the one who created human beings. But
Okay,
as soon as evolution came into picture, the God got little pushed back.
right.
Right? So it's no longer God who has created human beings. Maybe God has created those principles.
Hmm.
If you exactly get to know how those principles came out, then suddenly what will happen is okay, God has not created those principles, God has done this. So every time we are finding an answer to a mystery of the universe, suddenly the God is going further away from us. Do you see this?
Okay.
And therefore, it is important to see somewhere the idea of a God as a supernatural entity having created this universe can get questioned and logically so.
Yes, because I think when we stop having the answers, then somewhere the answer becomes God,
Okay.
right? Now, okay, even if I take that as an argument, fine. Secondly, my point is with the current, the way things are, the current state of affairs, it really makes me question this creator.
I know where you're coming from. You can be a little bit more vocal about it. And this is a safe space for us to talk. So go ahead.
I mean, we've already discussed it in brief in the previous conversation, but just the idea that if God is the supernatural entity
Mhm.
who is separate from us, who is all knowing, all powerful, like the protector of the universe, somewhere the creation that he has created is kind of flawed, I feel.
Is it?
I mean, you- is it as in like, because just see, there is so much of chaos around us, there's so much of negativity, there are, you know, children who have cancer, there is abuse happening, and
Right.
mental abuse, physical abuse happening in so many homes. And if you look at the big picture, like wars happening, mass casualties happening, I mean, even simple thing like people dying of starvation, dying because they don't have food, like how can that be the creation that has been created by an all-knowing, all-powerful God?
I see where you're coming from, Preeti. I'm sure you would have thought about it. So, what are the answers which has been given to you?
No, I have come across a lot of logical explanations for this, but whatever I've read about or come across is very, very surface level, very hollow, I feel.
Tell me more about it. Give me the reasons what has been given for all this evil that exists in the world,
Right.
and why do you find that's hollow?
Okay. Like you, what you usually do. Let's take it step by step.
Just take by step by step. Let's call out for all the reasons which can where the evil can be justified, and let's see whether it makes sense or not. Let's do that.
Yeah. So I think one logic that I have come across quite often is that yes, God created the universe, God created human beings, but He also gave human beings free will.
Oh my God.
And it was this free will, or rather the misuse of this free will, that is causing all the suffering
Mhm.
in the world, and that is why human beings are getting punished.
Okay. And why do you feel this argument is not correct?
The argument itself is not correct, because if the God is all knowing, beyond space and beyond time, then he should have known, or he or she should have known, that eventually I'll give them free will and they will misuse it. And because they misuse it, there is suffering. So if my God was all knowing, he should have known that giving free will lead to all this chaos. Right.
Ah, this is interesting. What you're saying is God is beyond time, then he can see through time.
Yeah,
And the God should have known that this will happen, and therefore why did the God give free will in the first place?
exactly.
So you think God is like one, or God is like an
Scientist.
scientist?
Yeah.
We both
Exact
spoke at the
word
same
that came
time.
in my head.
He was experimenting, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So this argument honestly does not hold water. But what other arguments you've had come across it?
So another one that I've come across is that, okay, fine, God has given you free will, but they gave you free will so that you learn from your mistakes.
Hmm.
That was one that I came. Another one was sort of to test you. Like, you have been given free will, and uh, God gives you suffering, pain, to test your love for them or to test your loyalty.
Okay.
I mean, both those don't hold water. Somehow, both those logics are.
Tell me more. Why?
Let's say if the first one, where I said you need to learn from, you're given free will to learn from your mistakes. Again, taking the same example we spoke about in the beginning, right? Of children dying of disease or, cancer, dying in the war. I'm I'm getting choked up thinking about it, but what lesson? What lesson are they learning from that mistake?
Hmm.
Right? And then if you talk about the logic of, being tested, even if you think about us, right? Like about my own child or your spouse, would you say that, I will put them through all this suffering and pain just to test them, to test how much they love me, to test how loyal they are to me? It sounds so inhuman, like it sounds sad, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So again, both those logics, I don't know, don't work.
What about law of karma?
Law of karma explains something. Like, I understand the, whatever you reap, you sow, and, it does get passed on through multiple lifetimes. But again, I don't know if I am going through something because of some karma which I have reaped from a previous lifetime, right? There's no way to prove or disprove that. So again, I'm
Back.
circling the drain and I'm back to that same black hole.
Right. Right. You've done a
But
lot
if
of.
you're talking about karma, sorry, I just cut you off there.
Yeah.
Again, if God knew that the law of karma is going to lead to so much chaos,
Hmm.
then why did they allow that first karma to even happen?
Right. Interesting.
I mean, I think I'm just digging.
No, no, it's nice. You have thought through it quite a bit, and I see where the issue is coming from. But I'll just try to add up from where you're coming. So it's also been said that this entire universe is Leela because God was had nothing to do. I mean, this is sort of a stories which go around, right?
Entertainment. God wanted
Then
entertainment.
the mind will come back and say, "Do you need so much of suffering to be entertained? Do you really want to have a Leela like this?" I mean, keep all these things aside. Just think in a very very objective way. Look at the food cycle. Go to a jungle. One animal is basically killing another animal.
Right.
So there is brutality as a part of nature, right? And this has come before the humans even came into the planet. It was very much there. So it's a part. This is an intrinsic part of nature. One can always ask that why didn't God create everyone like a plant,
Self sustaining.
which is self-sustaining? You take the sunlight, you take the nutrients, and you don't have to kill anyone.
Right.
right? So if you see a lot of violence, what we call violence, is a part of nature itself. So one can always question that how the God can be all compassionate.
I think as you were saying that, another argument sort of just popped up where I've heard it said that you need to undergo certain amount of suffering and pain to understand happiness, to understand pleasure. It's almost like saying, you need to go through this kind of abuse in order to feel safety, or you need to experience a war to understand what peace is. I mean, isn't that logic itself completely flawed?
Yeah, I mean, there is some merit in that logic, but at the same time, you can't just extrapolate it completely and justify the presence of so much of evil just because we need to experience the other side of it. So, one thing I want to tell you, Preeti, here is that we are trying too hard to justify a presence of a God through logic. Because somewhere are we trying to solve a problem without questioning the underlying assumption?
Um, I didn't understand what do you mean by that?
We say that God is all powerful.
Yes.
We call that as what? Omnipotent. Now, the mind says that if God is all powerful, can it create a rock which it cannot lift? If God is all powerful, can it create a rock which it cannot lift? If it cannot create a rock which it cannot lift, or it can always lift, that means God is not all powerful.
Hmm.
But if it creates a rock which
And
it
can
cannot lift, that means God is not all powerful.
okay.
This is not an argument against the existence of God. I'm just trying to say that mind has created an idea of God. And the same mind is now questioning the very idea that it has created. And that is where all the complications are coming from. That's what I was talking about, certain assumptions,
Hmm.
right? If you look at the society, whatever society values gets projected as a feature of God. So, for example, society says compassion is important. So God becomes all compassionate.
Compassionate.
Society says power is important. So God becomes all powerful. Society says one has to be just. So the God is just. In some cases, society says that well, you need to be aggressive to protect yourself. God becomes all aggressive.
Hmm.
Are you seeing that we have framed an idea of God using what we need right now from the system, and later we are questioning the very idea. And if you question the idea, a part of society will come and go after you saying, hey, you can't, this is the God's word.
Right. So then that's wow. I've never thought of it like that. That seems to be where the issue happens then, because this I have created an image or an idea of God, and then the same mind which has created that image and that idea is flipping the coin and questioning the existence of God, because now we are trying to put logic to it.
Absolutely. See, is God a part of your experience, or you have inherited an idea of a God depending upon where you are born?
Right.
Think about it, right? Let's take a very, very simple example here. The society always believes that an intelligent person will not do anything without a reason.
Right.
An intelligent person will not waste
There
his or
should be a
her
purpose
time
to doing something.
without purpose.
Yeah.
And since God is infinitely intelligent, it would have created this universe for a purpose. You see this? That how we are superimposing our idea on the God, and then we start looking out for what is the purpose.
And then we question, why isn't God
And
doing
then,
this?
exactly, then what is the purpose? And then we come out with answers and answers and questions and answers. And that is where we find ourselves digging into it, because the intellect which has created the idea of God, the same very intellect today is questioning if that idea of God was correct or not.
Right.
Because God is not a part of your experience, it is not a part of your reasoning, it's a part of an idea.
It makes sense what you're saying, but then this again leads to that question of why, in the first place, why has the mind created this image of God, and why do we tend to believe in it so strongly?
Yeah, we do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there are wars on this.
Yeah.
If you take politics aside, we'll not talk about it right now. See, that this world is very uncertain, right?
Right.
You have a part of your brain which is called prefrontal cortex. It can think about the future, it can think about the past. So you know that there is a lot of uncertainty and you want certainty. And therefore, it is important for you to believe in an idea of an all protector God who is going to protect you from all the future difficulties or the difficulties which is happening right now. It is right or wrong,
Yes.
right? So you need it for a psychological reason, for a
Hmm.
God to protect you. At the same time, that protector needs to be understood by your limited understanding,
Yes. Okay.
right? It cannot be abstract. It has to be, and which means you need to give uh, attributes to that
Some
God.
shape and form to it.
Shape and form and attributes. Even if you don't give shape and form, you have to give some attributes,
Right.
like all powerful,
Hmm.
all compassionate, protector. And then what society does is that a part of an intellect of the society will create that imaginary for you, and you're more than happy to take it because it gives you a sense of
Safety.
safety.
Right.
And then what happens when you see there are so much of chaos happening around you, then your mind starts questioning it, that why.
Hmm.
And then you start searching for
Answers.
answers, and then intellect creates answers to support the God which it has created earlier. Do you see this?
Right.
But the answers of the intellect sometimes may not be able to justify the intellect which is asking the question. so so the imagination of God that we have created, we have used our mind to create an imagination of God, and now we are trying to justify the stand, and a part of the mind is saying, hey, doesn't make sense. And that is where the entire chaos comes in, because the God is our psychological need.
Right. So you're saying that um, me as a human being, I have created this image of God because it gives me a sense of safety, yes. And because of somewhere the same intellect is also turning around and asking questions about the same God, existence of God or not. Again, it goes back to that whole question of, because I'm not able to give it any evidence, I'm not able to actually prove anything,
Let me interfere here. Sorry, you'll never be able to prove it.
then it
There's,
again becomes a matter of faith, and my ego is not allowing that,
the
Vidran.
point is, if you consider God as a supernatural entity separate, doing some business, you will never be able to prove the existence of that God ever. You will never be able to give enough logical answers to explain why evil is there in spite of all powerful God. I mean, you gave so many logical reasonings. It's not that you haven't. Even I have gone through it. A lot of people have gone through it. And the problem of evil cannot be solved, because the God is the a God with certain features, a God which is separate from us, is a psychological need.
Um,
It's a construct of a human intellect. And as the human intellect will evolve, it will make that construct. I mean, look at even creation itself. Till today, you don't have a satisfactory answer of creation. Even Big Bang, which seems to be a pretty good theory, doesn't have a lot of answers. I mean, you don't have an answer, a proper answer of creation. Forget about a supernatural God. You can't go. These are all answers which are given to us, which sort of takes care of our needs, need for safety.
Right. But then what you're saying is again, because of the lack of evidence, it's again very faith based, right? Like I need to take it at its word out of faith.
That's why I say sometimes faith is very good, because if someone has faith in God, you don't ask these questions. You feel you are protected, you are well taken care of, and that's a blessing. I feel. I mean, if you have faith, that's a wonderful thing to have.
It is. And I also agree. If you have faith, it is a great thing to have. But then, sorry, I'm again questioning this because somewhere, let's say something I have immense faith, and then if something happens, something difficult or something negative happens in my life, I again turn around and I question the same God, saying, why did this happen
Oh,
to me?
yes. So sometimes the faith is very transaction based. I do see from where you're coming, because till the time things are going well in my life, God is great. But if
Yeah.
things go not so great in your life, you start questioning the very God, and so faith can become very shaky. And I always jokingly say that if something wrong happens in your life, you ask God, why me? If something happens to your neighbor, you say it's their karma. so, so no, you're right. And that's why, imagine if you go beyond faith and you discover God. How will that be a place to be?
So you're saying that we we can discover God.
Yes, we can discover God, and it is not a mystical process. There is something very interesting happening right now, right here. And if we take our awareness towards the certain happenings which is happening right now, you will be able to discover God, which will not be conditioned by what society has told you. It will be your first hand experience.
Wow. Okay. And of talking about first-hand experiences, then you will also be able to give me the answers of why different people have experiences of God. They have, saints say that they
Hmm.
have experiences with God, and why everyone's experiences are so disconnected. Why there is no, what do you say? There's no one answer that everybody gives. Everyone's experience seems to be very different. So I think that question,
Need.
again, it comes back to that question.
Okay, so we are now breaking this further into two parts. I've just made a claim that you can discover God,
Yes.
and it's not a mystical experience. What you're talking about are people having mystical experiences where they had visions of God,
Hmm.
and all of them have different visions. And therefore, that kind of questions, that is God one?
One, because everyone is having different
Different
experiences.
experience or right now. Why don't we do one thing, Preeti? Why don't we take this up in our next episode? First, let's clarify that piece of yours, that what are those visions all about? Are those visions, or we are looking at something very different? So I'm not questioning their experiences. Maybe the conclusion we are drawing from these experiences may be very different. But let's talk about that in our next episode. And then we will come back in terms of how
Can discover God.
we can discover God without a mystical experience, just through pure awareness.
Right.
Make sense?
Makes sense. And from today's talk that we've had, I think that biggest thing that has stuck with me is that our mind has created this image of God, and we have attributed different things like all powerful, all knowing, beyond space, beyond time. We are the ones who've given God these characteristics. And then the same mind turns around when that God doesn't live up to that standard and say, why are you not being all powerful right now? I think that has been my biggest takeaway from today's conversation. And I think it gives me something more to dig into. So, yeah, thank you, Vedant.
No, that's nice, Preeti, that you summed it very well. And once you start discovering God in his truest form, the questions will not go. You will still ask these questions, but the inquiry will go in a slightly different direction, and we will see as we go along with this. But thank you so much for asking these questions. It kind of makes us think through a lot of dogmas that we have been living with all
Yeah.
through our life, and those
And like you said, I think answering the questions before we start digging deeper,
Right.
which means I'm not always asking those questions in the
Those
back of
questions
my mind.
on
So
back of the
yeah.
mind. So great. Thank you so much, Preeti. And to my audience, thank you so much for being here. Just wanted to let you know that we do conduct a lot of sessions on Upanishads where we can understand the wisdom of Upanishads in a very simple manner so that we can practically use it in our lives. And for that, if you want to be a part of those sessions, please register yourself. The link is there in the description below. Please put in your name and the number there, and we will get back to you as soon as we are starting our new batch.
And if you like this video, please do share it with your friends. Leave your valuable comments below. Like, share, and subscribe the video. Thank you so much.